Welcome back to the channel, YouTube. I am so pumped you're here right now because today's explainer is, well, it's a total game changer. We are diving headfirst into the cutting-edge science of women's strength training. Look, for decades, the fitness industry has just fed us these watered-down routines and, honestly, half-truths. But today, we're stripping all that away with pure, hard data. Seriously, get ready, because what we're covering is going to completely flip how you view your time in the gym, your body's absolute potential, and what lifting heavy actually means.
Let's just kick things off with one of the most controversial questions in the entire fitness space. Do men actually build muscle faster than women? Right? It's something we've basically been conditioned to believe is an absolute biological fact. But what if I told you the latest physiological research completely shatters that assumption? Stick around, because the answer is definitely going to surprise you.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, shattering the bulky myth. Then, the science of training hard. Progress through smart periodization, menstrual cycle and performance, and finally, protecting bones and joints. Let's dive right in. Part 1, shattering the bulky myth. So before we can even talk about how to lift, we absolutely have to tear down the massive psychological barrier that stops so many women from lifting heavy in the first place, right? The dreaded fear of getting bulky.
If we look at the actual data from the ICNS on muscle cross-sectional area, things get really clear. Okay, yes, men typically have a larger absolute body size. Say a man's muscle starts at 40 centimeters and grows by 4, and a woman's muscle starts at 30 centimeters and grows by 3. Sure, the man gained more absolute mass. But wait, look at the relative growth. They both increase their muscle size by exactly 10%. It's exactly the same. Men and women literally have the exact same relative capacity for muscle growth. This whole idea that men are biologically superior at the cellular level for muscle protein synthesis, it's just flat out false.
So if that's true, why does this myth just refuse to die? Well, a few big reasons. First up, sociocultural biases totally warp our perception. When we picture this massive, prototypical fitness physique, you know the ones, we're very often looking at the results of hormone use, not just standard strength training. Those extreme aesthetics don't happen by accident. Also, when you first start lifting, the scale might jump a pound or two in those first few weeks. That is not sudden bulk. It's actually a super positive physiological response. Your body is just storing more water and glycogen inside the muscle tissue as it repairs and builds lean, dense tissue. All right, moving on to part 2, the science of training hard. Now that we're completely clear you won't accidentally wake up looking like the Hulk, let's get into the actual mechanics of how the female body responds to resistance. To really understand muscle growth, we got to talk about Henneman's size principle. Basically, your muscles have different types of fibers. The ones with the highest potential for growth and strength, your type 2 fast twitch fibers, well, they're kind of lazy. Honestly, they do not want to work unless they absolutely have to. This principle proves that these high potential fibers only get recruited under 2 specific conditions. Either the load is extremely heavy right out of the gate, or you've created severe fatigue by totally exhausting your endurance fibers first. And here is where it gets absolutely fascinating for women. Biologically, women naturally have a much higher proportion of type 1 endurance fibers and better muscle perfusion than men do. This makes women unbelievably resilient and highly resistant to fatigue at submaximal loads. Because you resist fatigue so well, you actually have to push way closer to your absolute limits to get the exact same muscle-building stimulus as a man. You literally cannot just stop when it starts to burn. You've got to train hard enough to force those lazy type 2 fibers to finally wake up and do some work. So based on the research, here are the 2 evidence-based paths to trigger that hypertrophy. If you're lifting lighter weights, say under 50% of your 1-rep max, you absolutely must train completely to muscular failure. If you don't totally exhaust those type 1 fibers, the type 2s are just going to stay asleep. But if you train heavy, like over 80% of your max, the weight itself is so intense it forces those type 2 fibers to work from rep number 1. In that case, you don't actually need to hit total failure. You can stop with 1 or 2 reps left in the tank, which is awesome because it lets you recover faster without totally frying your nervous system. Section 3. Progress through smart periodization. So we know exactly how hard you need to push now, right? But that creates a new problem. You physically cannot push like that every single day. Enter periodization. This is the exact strategy you need to manage stress without totally burning out. Think of your training volume like zones on a dashboard. You've got MV, which is the bare minimum just to maintain what you already have. Then MEV, which is where the magic happens and growth actually starts. And finally, MRV, your maximum recoverable volume, basically your absolute biological red line.
Now, the huge mistake so many people make is trying to live in that MRV red zone all year long. Your body really, really wants homeostasis. If you stay chronically pinned in the MRV zone, you'll hit the exhaustion phase of the general adaptation syndrome, and your progress is going to come to a screeching halt. To keep your body from hitting that wall, you have to overcome what scientists call adaptive resistance, and you do that by cycling your training. Linear periodization is fantastic for beginners. You just slowly raise the weight while dropping reps over a few weeks to build a solid base. Undulating periodization changes the intensity weekly or even daily. This keeps your neuromuscular system constantly guessing, making it a total game changer for intermediate lifters. Then there's block periodization for advanced athletes, where you dedicate entire 4 to 6 week blocks to one singular goal, like pure hypertrophy or pure strength. The whole point here, always give your body a novel stimulus, so you literally never stop progressing. All right, part 4, menstrual cycle and performance. We are getting into arguably the most cutting-edge research and our explainer today. We are actually connecting hormonal cycles directly to gym performance. We're talking about turning your biology into a strategic advantage. Let's walk through this biological timeline real quick. In the early follicular phase, basically right around the start of your period, your energy is kind of mixed. Maybe some early cramping, but there's a rising tide of energy. Then, from the late follicular phase, right up to ovulation, your estrogen levels just surge, and estrogen is highly anabolic. This is literally your superpower window for peak strength, energy, and motivation. But after ovulation, you hit the luteal phase. That's when progesterone, which is catabolic, takes over. This phase comes with a real physiological drop in energy, way more fatigue, and a huge need for extra recovery. If you have ever felt like your normal warm-up weight suddenly felt like it was glued to the floor, listen to this quote from a subject in the Power in the Flow clinical study. She said, "It just feels heavy and boring just before my period." I really want to validate your experience right now. That drop in strength and motivation during the luteal phase, it is a documented hormonal physiological response. It is absolutely 100% not a lack of willpower. Your neurotransmitters and hormones are actively altering your force output capabilities. And check this out. A fascinating comparative study showed that women who actually synced their effort with their body's anabolic windows saw incredible results. For example, doing 8 heavy sessions during their follicular phase and only 2 light sessions during their luteal phase, that yielded significantly greater maximum strength gains than women who just ignored their cycle completely. So training hard does not mean training the exact same way every single day. It means surfing your natural hormonal waves to get the maximum adaptation possible. Finally, Section 5, protecting bones and joints. Let's expand the whole why this matters thing beyond just building muscle and looking good. This is really about your long-term health, your vitality, and your functional longevity. As women age, especially going through the menopausal transition, declining estrogen severely compromises bone mineral density. And studies conclusively show that things like light aerobics and walking are clinically insufficient to stop this bone loss. But high-intensity resistance training, or HIRT, changes the entire game. When you lift heavy weights, the mechanical pull of those muscles on your tendons triggers this amazing process called mechanotransduction that literally signals your osteoblast to synthesize new bone matrix. It drastically improves your bone mineral density and helps prevent osteoporosis. So heavy lifting isn't just a fun fitness choice. It is literally a clinical necessity. Just to quickly sum up the massive systemic benefits of heavy lifting. First off, that new muscle you build permanently increases your basal metabolic rate, meaning you're burning more calories around the clock. Second, because of female Q-angle biomechanics, women are highly susceptible to ACL tears. Heavy lifting totally fortifies those stabilizing muscles and ligaments, helping prevent those catastrophic joint injuries. And finally, active muscle actually functions like an endocrine organ. It releases healthy myokines that improve insulin sensitivity and regulate blood lipids. Simply put, this is the ultimate tool for a long, highly functional life. Man, we've covered a tremendous amount of ground today. From shattering the whole bulky myth and understanding fiber recruitment, all the way to mapping your menstrual cycle to your periodization strategy. So I want to leave you with one provocative question. Knowing all of this cutting-edge science, how are you going to change your workout routine tomorrow? I really want to hear your thoughts on this, so please drop a comment down below for the YouTube community. Share this explainer with a friend who really needs to hear it, and start applying this knowledge the second you step into the gym. Thanks so much for learning with me today. I'll see you in the next one.